There's this researcher, her name is Karen Adolph, and she's been studying her whole career, like over 40 years, about children's motor development, and then different things involved in that too. But she gets to do all these really fun experiments with babies. And so she starts out by talking about this old study called the visual cliff, where they would put babies on a plexiglass, but it would look like it dropped off, even though it was totally safe. And it's interesting, she's going to talk about how inferences were made about babies taking risks from that, but then how her research contributed to our understanding of babies and how they move their bodies to take risks. Is it supposed to come out of here?
It should.
We can get this work.
It turned up all the way on your end.
It is now.
An experience feeling
Is it coming out of it?
I think it's coming out of it. Well, let's put the microphone, turn the microphone on, set it next to the output. And then maybe that'll solve our problem, because it seems like it should come out of the outlet.
we shouldn't jump over the edge of the drop off because it's dangerous and you should probably be afraid of it.
Probably. Exactly how and when this hypothetical fear develops makes for pretty gleeful research inside Dr. Faraday's lab.
We're discovering some surprising things that are playing in the face of, how people have studied locomotion for the last 100 years.
Including what babies do and feel when they're on a leg.
So the story about fear is that there was a fear in Gary's famous classical study in developmental psychology by Gibson and Locke in the 1960s that showed that human infants and infants of a number of different species will avoid crossing over an apparent drop off on what they call a visual cliff. It's a glass table, and on one side there's a checkerboard pattern surface right under the glass. Other side of the table, the pattern surface is way down on the floor. So visually, it looks like a big 3-foot drop off. So when human babies first begin crawling, most of them will crawl over the apparent drop off, but after several weeks of crawling experience, then they'll begin to refuse to crawl over the drop off. And the conventional interpretation of this was that infants are avoiding the drop off because they're afraid of it.
It's backing away. No part of that guy. The experiment became the shaky foundation for the myth that crawling innately teaches us to fear heights.
Babies avoid going over the drop off because they're afraid of heights. How do we know they're afraid of heights? Because they avoid crawling over the drop off. So as you may have noticed, the argument is circular.
As it happened, the visual clip was a better test of an infant's depth perception, not their fear of heights. And if you look closely, you may have actually noticed that the babies don't look particularly scared.
It is a perfectly safe surface of support. So after one trial, human infants cleverly figure this out, and then they will crawl over the drop off.
So how do you really test if a baby's scared of heights?
You can test babies at the edge of a real cliff where there's no safety glass. It's just an actual drop off. The drop off could be adjustable, so it could be little or really, really big.
Why stop there? Inside Dr. Adolph's infant action lab, babies are tested on a variety of apparatuses.
You test babies at the edge of a slope, so if you see deeper, crossing bridges that are wide or narrow over a certain support, and so on. If there's no safety glass, you can test the same baby dozens and dozens of trials in the same session. And that means that you can determine for each individual infant when they think that that surface is safe and when they think it's risky within a couple of degrees of accuracy, like 2 degrees of accuracy for a slope.
Dr. Adolph has spent 25 years running tests. The resulting data sets are both convincing And adorable.
It thinks that most of each child, right at the edge of the precipice, they're reaching their arm down over the drop off. They are putting their little feet or their little hands on the bridge and taking little tiny steps at the edge. And all the while they're doing it with either neutral or positive facial expressions.
Horse cry.
So that's one thing I wanted to point out is, that when we're born, we actually don't have these fears of these risks. At least that's what we're assuming through some of these, experiments that are being done. And those babies just will happily crawl right off, and someone's there to catch them. And it's through these experiences that are actually changing our brains and helping us learn what's risky, what's safe, how can I move my body now? As that incline got steeper and steeper for that baby, it's like they make adjustments so that it's now a safe way that they're engaging with this. And I think we can give children a lot of credit. Of course, we need to set up safe environments, and we're going to get to that a little bit later, but we can give children a lot of credit for this internal sense of what's risky and what's safe and what's going to be okay and what they're going to be able to manage. The next exercise I want to do with you all is to think right now about how much you like to or don't like to take risks. And we're thinking about physical risks because that's what this whole thing is about, And so we're actually all going to stand up, and I'm going to have us line up. And how should we do this? Okay, let's line up this way. And over here we have a 1, which means I really hate taking risks. I will be as safe as possible. I wear a padded helmet. And then we have a 10 over here, which is like, I like to jump out of helicopters. So everyone jump up and let's arrange ourselves on this. We've got our padded helmets over here and our jumping out of helicopters over here. Oh, and then it looks like most of us are like somewhere in the middle. Okay, so that's how you are now. Okay, keep that in mind. I want you to think about yourself as a child. How risk aversion or risk taking were you as a child? If it's changed from where you are, or if it has changed, then I want you to move right now to that new spot. And if it hasn't changed, stay where you are. It looks like our really safe people have always been really safe. And there was a little bit of flip-flop in here. Now I want you to tell me if you were really risky as a child, but now you're not so much, what happened?
Injuries.
Injuries.
Getting old.
Yeah.
Some mental health stuff,
Having kids and working.
Out of my own. At this corner, still have to learn my lesson.
Okay, if you switched from now you take lots of risks, but you used to be less risky, what happened? Sarah?
My mom was a very anxious mother, so it was very much like, be careful, be careful, be careful. And growing up, I was like, none of this stuff was that scary. So as I became a teenager and into my adult years, it was like, I want to try everything. Where is that boundary?
Yeah.
We're still like, definitely still have a limit, but
Yeah.
life is a lot more.
Yeah, so we have two things here that are coming into play. One is our own personal experiences that have changed how we interact. And one is some social pressures that have also come into play. So come grab your seats again.